If you're in your mid 40s or 50s, you've probably thought about quitting your job, taking your savings, and moving to another country to start over. That's what I did. I had a long career in tech and I was making some really good money. And 7 years ago, I gave that all up, packed my bags, and moved to Japan. Now, at 51 years old, here's what that choice looks like. I gave up my prime earning years in corporate America to chase something, and I couldn't even clearly define what that was. I just had it in my mind to leave and never look back. I came to Japan the way that most people do. I took a job teaching English. For the first 6 months here, you really feel like you've won. The food here is really good. You can walk the streets late at night without worrying about anything. The trains run efficiently. It's clean. You really feel that you've made it out. But then the novelty dies and then reality sets in. From my first day on the job as an English teacher, I saw guys who were in their 50s and 60s, and they've been in Japan 20 plus years. And there they were teaching English with no career path. And immediately I said to myself, that ain't me, and it's not going to be. But the really unsettling aspect was the fact that they all seemed fine with what they were doing. But I knew that I was not a teacher. I did not come as far as I did and do all the things that I've done to resign myself to teaching English for the rest of my professional life. I also came to realize my limitations. Teaching is a job that requires constant interactions with people. It's not like a desk job where you have your morning meetings a few times a week or some one-on-one interactions with your colleagues. English requires, or teaching English requires, always interacting with people. And that's just not something that I really find desirable or something that I'm even equipped for. And there's the other aspect. You're constantly talking as an English teacher 5 days a week. And ultimately, that ended up having an effect on me. I ended up damaging one of my vocal cords as a result of so much speaking. My voice never got rest. And I had it in my mind that this type of job was not going to destroy me physically. So I had to start looking at some other options. So I stepped away from teaching English full time in order to begin exploring what I might be able to do professionally. Now, I still had to pay my bills, so I took a part-time job as a corporate trainer, and I also taught junior high school part-time. And those jobs would at least let me pay the bills while I figured out my next move. I started studying renewable energy, even though I had zero background in that area. And after doing that, that didn't produce any results for me professionally. And then I moved on to electric vehicles and mobility. Had no background in that area either, studied up on it, and spent a while actually producing a lot of content as it relates to e-mobility and renewable energy, but that didn't produce any results either. And then the AI boom hit, and it seemed like everything was moving in that direction. That was really the hot area. And so I developed my knowledge in AI and started to present my different solutions, pitching to different companies, and also a couple of opportunities as it relates to some projects within Japan, some pretty high profile clients that I thought that there might be a chance to finally pivot away from English and be able to do something professional and return back to my professional roots. In Japan, people occasionally take pause when they learn that you have a background in Silicon Valley. But that really doesn't matter here because Japan is very much a consensus-oriented structure and it doesn't tolerate disruption. And so that's the opposite of what you find in Silicon Valley and many parts of the Western world. And so what they want here is for you to be part of the structure. And as a foreigner, that's not even a realistic possibility that you may even get a meaningful opportunity to be part of the structure. At best, you're a novelty professionally, and in some cases, you might be an opportunity for some Japanese to siphon ideas from. But in terms of what you have to offer, in terms of your skills, expertise, and experience, generally, there's very little opportunity to become part of the structure here. 7 years in, it's just been a cycle of ongoing restarts, trying different ideas and concepts and pitching them or building your knowledge in new areas, growth areas. There was also a wrecked vocal cord. And then the reality is that I was burning through my savings. And really, at this point, I have nothing to show for it. It took me 7 years to realize that Japan wasn't a new beginning, but really a very costly way to face myself. Now, one of the things that really has brought all of this to the surface is the fact that I'm older and I've developed a level of maturity now that helps me see that. Whereas when I got here 7 years ago, as I said earlier, I didn't have really a rationale for what I was chasing. I just knew that I wanted to go. But now, over this time and the various experiences that I've had here, the various things that I've learned, that level of maturity has taught me that Japan isn't working for me and is very unlikely to work for me. The dangerous aspect about being here for this much time is not that you're broken as a result of the lack of success, but you can really become complacent here, sedate, if anything. Japan is a very harmonious society, and it's easy to go with the flow and live comfortably, and you can live here on a modest salary. But the reality is that you're not growing professionally, and time is passing. You're wasting years, really sort of in a stagnant position. And when everything else is moving around the world, when new opportunities are developing, in Japan, you're really sort of locked out, and you just get caught in the cycle of living day to day and really sort of existing. And you can always fall back to the tried and true path, and that's teaching English. But what's that really going to do for you long term? And if you're like me, hopefully you'll snap out of it and realize that the clock is ticking. I'm now 51 years old, and there's only so much of a window now for me to think about which way to go professionally, as well as consider the financial aspects of my professional life, or at least my professional future. It's well documented that salaries in Japan aren't very good. And so to continue along this path, I would obviously be accepting that. And at this phase, that could actually be something that's quite damaging. And you also realize the thing that I noticed that my first day teaching English here are those 50 and 60-year-old guys. And at this point now, I could easily become one of those guys. And that's just something that I will not do. So that puts me right here, right now, with some really hard questions that I think most people go out of their way to avoid. What the hell am I doing? And where am I going with this? What is this situation actually going to produce for me? I've made the choice to be here, and now I see what that looks like. Also, do I have anything of real value to offer, or have I been on a road to nowhere all along? These are some really brutal questions to answer. And there's also another hard reality that can't be ignored. The time lost is real. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in earning potential sacrifice for English lesson books and a structure that's designed to keep you locked out. And beyond that, there could also be financial and professional damage that's irreversible. So, what's the move? So, I'm not going to tell you that I've got some sort of great hustle and use all sorts of buzzwords and some great idea, tech related, that's a can't miss. I really don't know what the move is at this point. Perhaps I could go crawling back to corporate America and put back on the business casual and see what I can make of that. First, that would be a path to shoring up my retirement if I could even last that long. But also the other question is whether the corporate world would even have me back. Or I could take one more big swing at 51 years old with no fallback and see what I could build on my own. So I admit that my gamble 7 years ago on Japan didn't pay off. Still, I'd rather gamble on myself and accept the consequences if things don't work out rather than do it on someone else's terms. I know what I need to do and I know what it'll take. It's time to draft the blueprint and get moving.